Hi, I'm Josh Cadillac, and welcome to my podcast, Know Your Shit. I've been blessed to see great success, as well as seeing the bottom up close and personal in 2008. And if there's one lesson I've learned, is that if you want to have success and differentiate yourself from everyone else out there, you need to know your shit. As a successful real estate and crypto investor and an educator, it drives me insane that people do not immerse themselves in their craft. Everyone is so busy advertising and testing new sales techniques, they forget the most important thing, the product. Here I want to talk to the folks that got this right, the most successful people in the world in every industry. Bring them to you and find out what they learned in their business that made it great. When you listen to my podcast, you will know for sure that the topics and experts we have on have one thing in common. They know their shit. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Know Your Shit podcast, where our knowledge and pride in what we do drives us to be excellent. My name is Josh Cadillac, and I'll be in the driver's seat once again for today's show as we try to show you how to stop just chasing paychecks and how to start closing customers for life. We have a great show for you today, and the reason why we have a great show is because we have a great guest. Once again, we have Reid with us here. Reid, is it Reid Tileston, right?
You got
How
it.
are you, Reid?
You got it. I'm good. Happy Monday, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing great. Reid, why don't you tell our listeners what it is that you do?
Yeah, so I'm just a small business enthusiast at my core, and I'm lucky enough, Josh, I've been able to live my American dream. No joke. I've bought and sold some companies, become a multimillionaire in the process. After the last one I sold, I got to do a race up the world's tallest staircase, and I'm just blessed to be able to engage your audience around how they can do the same, how they can live their American dream. So that's what brings me on today.
I'm a big fan of the American Dream. I even wrote a book called Roadmap to the American Dream because I believe so much in that. It is a thing. We are tremendously privileged to live where we do and have the opportunities that we do. So what got you started doing that, Reid?
I was at the second oldest pub in San Francisco in 2007, a place called the Old Ship Saloon. Has a cool mast out front of it from a ship that actually sunk during the gold rush. So a pretty cool place. And I was working in finance. I was in my early 20s, managed to save up $100,000. So I was very blessed in that situation and was trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. Ultimately, I was talking to two private equity pros that got me set on the path of fitness franchising. So I started out as a top performing multi-unit anytime fitness owner, plenty of roadblocks and fun stories in the way of getting to that. And that set me off on 16 years going down this route. What I find though, Josh, is that the real first step in it is assessment. And it's understanding which of the four avatars individuals hit. First avatar is, are you an employee? We all know what an employee is. Second avatar is, are you an entrepreneurial employee? An equity employee, I'll call it. What I'll describe that is, maybe you have some equity upside in the venture that you're involved in, but you don't control your destiny, right? And maybe you work on quadrant 2 activities that are important, but you don't own all the upside of what you do. And ultimately, whatever entity you're involved in, you don't control it. Avatar 3 is the business owner. Now, I love business owners. I've spent many years as one myself. And that is where you own all your upside. You have some of the freedom and some of the autonomy that comes with small business ownership, but ultimately you work in the business, not on the business. Then there's Avatar 4, which is an entrepreneurial business owner, where as opposed to you working for the business essentially works for you. And I wrote a book, Grit It Done, Low Risk Guide to Entrepreneurial Success. You can check it out at grititdone.com. 99 cents, by the way, through the end of May, where I outline a 9-step process to go through this and make business ownership a low risk option, relatively alternative. So that's what I got.
Love it, man. I love it. No, the idea of becoming a business owner and owning your product and running something that is going to take and sustain a lifestyle for you and help you build something worthwhile and meaningful. Super important stuff. Love the topic, man. Well, let me ask you, Reid, what do you like best about what you do?
What I like best about what I get to do right now is that I'm blessed with the opportunity to be able to teach this to other people. After my exits over the years, I'm now an adjunct professor, so I get to teach it. And I wrote a book on it as well. So I'm having fun trying to live vicariously by empowering other people to do it. I will also invest in people that want to be entrepreneurial business owners. I'll help fill equity gaps if they're going to get like an SBA 7A loan. I'm starting to serve on boards too, although that's kind of an interesting experience because I'm more of that owner should be in control type of person, but I'm on some boards as well. So I'm just having fun to take what I've learned over the 16 years of doing this and at least showing other people that this opportunity exists. Now, let's be clear. Is being a business owner easy? No, it's a heck of a lot of work. And does failure happen? Absolutely it does. And the cost of failure can be catastrophic, right? I mean, if you lever up, as you know, in the real estate world with a personal guarantee and you default, you become, familiar with my favorite chapter 11, right? And that's a place that certainly no one wants to be. But with that said, though, since my early 20s, I'm just grateful that I've been able to experience the freedom financially and the autonomy of small business ownership. And I think that that's a big reason that people want to go down this route. What I've really found though, Josh, over the years of doing this is the true fulfillment from it comes from the people that I meet along the way and the resonant relationships that I've been able to develop. And let's be clear, in the world of small business, world of real estate, heck, the world overall, I think that people are the biggest sources of pain, but they're also the biggest sources of pleasure. And I've just been lucky to have been able to be around some entrepreneurial employees, people that I've worked with, customers that have really, really allowed me to find a lot of good fulfillment. Outside of that, owning a business, the pile of paperwork is this high. And I think that being a business owner inherently has inspired me, and I see it inspire others to be more civic minded because you're on the frontier and you can see how the sausage of the country is made. And it just can't help but once you see that and you see some of the just ins and outs of, the system's pretty good, but you know what? There's things that can be done to make it better. So bottom line is, if you do it right, you can experience financial freedom, you'll get autonomy, you'll meet some really cool people along the way and have some life-changing relationships, and you become more civic minded. And that's what it's done for me. And I think that, it can be a good path for other people. And the time has to be right. And this path is in no way, shape, or form for everybody. Maybe it makes sense to do, when you're young, like I was 16 years ago. Maybe it makes sense to do when you're in your, mid to late 50s and you got a couple $100,000 in the bank. Maybe you're lonely because you're an empty nester now and you want to say, get in this whole small business ownership thing. But the key is that it's a good path to analyze at any given time.
In a saturated real estate market, how are you going to get the best deals? What are you going to do to secure the customer? Especially in a market now where competition is going to be tighter, where people are going to have to sign a buyer brokerage agreement just to get people to say hello, to work with them and show them property, number one. How are you going to make the case? Having a real estate license and a driver's license and perhaps a super key is not enough to cut it anymore. You have to be better than that, and you have to be able to make the case up front. You have to show them that they can't duplicate or replicate what they get from you. If that resonates, if that makes sense to you, then you need to be in the Close for Life Mastermind community, because that's what we're all about. It doesn't matter what we're talking about, what we're teaching. Everything we do here is built around one thing and one thing only. How do we take and close a customer for life? How do we build that loyalty, that respect, that credibility in our customer that they're never going to want to work with anybody other than you? That's why you need to be in this group, to take and not waste time doing all the things that don't make sense and don't work, that this industry encourages us to do all the time. And then to take and cover up the screw up, they tell us advertise more. They got a million ways for you to spend money advertising. Guys, advertise less, learn more, and be the goods. That's what Close for Life is about, and that's what we're here. That's what we created this to do. This mastermind community exists to help you become the goods, what they want, what they need, something they don't feel like they can get anyplace else. Come and join us, folks, and learn how to be just that.
What I find in this space is that a lot of people will invest time and money, whether it be, getting an MBA. And I like MBAs. I got an MBA from Chicago Booth, right? Or they'll, attend a weekend workshop and, pay good money or go to a conference or anything like that. I wrote a book so that people can just spend 3 hours and 99 cents as a very time efficient first step in figuring out if they want to go down the path of buying an existing business or opening a franchise. So read the book, invest the 3 hours, and then, book a call with me, book a call with the other people in the space that do this. I always advise people that, it's critical no matter what you're doing in life, and certainly when it comes to business acquisitions, who you surround yourself with is going to define you, and be very thoughtful about the group. I mean, my strong advice is do not go down this route alone. Business ownership can be very lonely, and I can speak to my own personal experience shares to that. But, have a peer group both while you're searching and while you're operating, and just be very thoughtful about who that peer group is. Talk to a lot, diligence a lot of them, and ultimately join that one that makes the most sense for you.
It's something my father used to say to me all the time. My father was always the boss. He was a boss of everything, always. And a very successful business owner in his own right. I mean, he done a lot of really, really cool things, run a lot of cool businesses, had patents to his name, did all kinds of crazy stuff. But one line that he would say, I'd see him thinking, sitting there and just alone with his thoughts. And I'd say, like, what's going on? He says, heavy is the head that wears the crown. The idea that when you're the final decision maker and everything depends upon you, whether or not people get paychecks or is resting on the decisions you make, it's a thing. So you're right. It's not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing to be a business owner, but the rewards are also are there to compensate you for the willingness to take on that risk and aggravation and the pressure that goes along with it.
Absolutely. Go ahead, please.
Go ahead. I definitely want to hear your feedback on it.
Oh yeah. And, wearing that crown is absolutely heavy. One of the fun things though, is that when you can find other business owners that also are wearing that crown and have those same issues that you do around, I'm worried about payroll. I have this, people issue that's just draining me. I got this really annoying vendor I don't know how to deal with, or, I'm in trouble with the IRS or this and that. Then when you can find that peer group who gets it, right? They're also business owners, because a lot of this stuff, you definitely can't explain it to an employee, right? Or a team member. You can't always explain it to like a friend either. And some things you can't even explain to your significant other, but you can explain it to a fellow business owner. And the truth is, you don't even have to explain it because they already get it. So there's a lot of upside in having that. And I think that there is no reason to go through this process alone. It's just so much more enjoyable when you can create those relationships with other business owners. So I think your dad, Mr. Cadillac Sr., gave you some good advice with that. And I like the idea of the crown, right? The crown's not always gold for the business owners, but it's definitely a crown.
It's heavy, and there's neck pain that comes with it, and chiropractor visits and all sorts of stuff associated.
Well, hopefully your mom was good at giving massages.
As it turns out, Mama's still amazing. She's a great human being. Let me ask you this though, Reid. What makes you good at what you do you think?
My mentality is grit it done, right? And at the end of the day, what that means to me is that as long as I'm doing exactly what I don't want to be doing at the exact moment that I don't want to be doing it, I know I'm on the right path. Now, Josh, I'm sure that sounds fantastic. It's the roadmap to a life of misery. But what I've found over the years doing this is that if I'm here just life-wise, and then I do something I don't want to do, it's painful. It's not always fun. I do, though, try to take some advice I recently heard from David Goggins and Andrew Huberman of, just lean into that struggle, lean into that pain. So I'm working on that. But I take the pain. I do what I don't want to do. And then I find elation there afterwards. I just find joy after I do that. So I know that if I want to achieve joy, fulfillment, happiness, I just got to do hard stuff with 100% certainty. Simple as that. I think cold water immersion is a great example of that, and I supply it to my day-to-day life. So for example, if I felt uncomfortable about going on a podcast and talking to this crazy Josh Cadillac person that I don't know or this and that, and it was something I was afraid of doing, that's exactly what I should be doing, because I know after the conversation, I'm going to feel absolutely awesome.
Absolutely. When you push yourself and you show yourself what you're capable of, you move that bar on yourself. It's becoming comfortable with the uncomfortable. It's part of that self-growth. I say all the time to people, and I've said on this podcast many times, you don't grow on the mountaintop. You grow in the valley. So if you care about yourself and you want to see what you're capable of, well, it means that you got to get your butt off the mountaintop and throw yourself back in the valley so that that better version of you can emerge on the other side of that valley, right? It is a thing. So, Reid, let me ask you a question that kind of maybe flips it on its head a little bit. What do you see as the opportunity in the market today?
People have been talking about this since 2010, but America's aging. There's a lot of baby boomers that are passing their wealth down to the next generation. Silver tsunami, not the first person to talk about it, very well documented. The numbers are debatable. There's no academic research to kind of show what exactly it is, but I'll tell you that probably $10 trillion of wealth is going to be passed on to the next generation in the form of small businesses. And that number is very debatable, but the point is it's big. They've done studies that show that generation to generation, small businesses have a 70% attrition rate from generation 1 to generation 2, and then it gets 12% from 2 to 3, and then 8% from 3 to 4. So right now, there's just a lot of retiring baby boomers out there, and some of them know exactly what they want to do with their business. Some of them do not know what they want to do with their business. So there's an opportunity for acquisitions. Now, what's interesting to me is that people started talking about this in 2010, 2015, and a lot of people guessed that business owners were going to retire, in their 60s. And a lot did. But a lot haven't retired. They're retiring now. And a lot more may not retire until their 80s. Some plan for it. Some they just do it they're very reactionary. So there's, in the historical context, there's a good opportunity to acquire existing businesses now. What I will tell you is that supply is there, demand is there. This has been a very hot, sexy topic for a number of years, and it's getting more hot and sexy as time goes on. But the point is that it's not in the past. It's actually in the present right now, and it's going to continue over the foreseeable future as well. And what I would tell you, Josh, is that I've been lucky enough to have done well with this financially. But what I really think is interesting is that, say you have the average American, median wage, $1,118 per week. Let's gross it up to $70K per year when you add the present value of benefits and paid time off and things like that. What I genuinely believe is that if that individual goes out and they find a company that's making, we'll just say for round numbers, $500,000 of profits, which I'm going to call EBITDA, adjusted cash flow per year, and they buy that company with 80% SBA financing. Now, they got to put some money into that to be able to bridge that equity gap. So you got to have some savings, you got to have family and friends. You can talk to people like me that will invest and bridge that gap, but we don't invest for free. So you got to give up equity and interest and stuff like that. But with that said, though, family, friends, I think people get scrappy. They can find money, save some money, do it. Then what will happen is, let's assume the business doesn't grow at all, just keeps the same profit margins, inflation adjusted. They're going to make more money than that $70,000 each year that they own it. And let's say they do an SBA 7A loan that has a 10-year term to it. At the end of 10 years, when that debt is paid off, they're going to have a seven-figure exit if they sold it for the same multiple that they bought it for. During that process, I'm going to tell you, have more freedom because they're a business owner, and it's pretty, it's hard work, but it's a good life. They're going to meet some really interesting people along the way, and I think they'll become more civic-minded. And that doesn't even talk about growing the business. You say you think you can grow the business at like 5% EBITDA per year and maybe get some multiple expansion on the back end. Now it becomes like a reasonable wealth generation event where it can get, not just low seven figures, but more. I just think it's a great option for people to consider, because for the perfect businesses out there, $2 million of EBITDA, fragmented customer base, recurring revenue, there's no shortage of private equity firms or strategic acquirers or a lot of other people that are going to want to buy those. But I just think there's some really good opportunities in the 500K and below area for just your average, median wage earning American that can just level up financially by looking at it. So I get excited about, talking to that. And that's why I wrote the book. It's like, you can go get an MBA. MBAs are great, but this is just a good starting point for understanding, one, how you can do this, but also I'm careful to give frameworks and kind of show how I've done it and how I've seen others do it. But I also put in there all the fun anecdotal stories of what it's actually like to be a business owner. Because it's one thing to see a spreadsheet that shows some numbers on it. Awesome, great, pretty cool. It's much different, though, to see that in conjunction with a real world glimpse of what it's like to manage people, of what it's like to deal with vendors, of what it's like to deal with customers, stuff that, you know, your dad dealt with growing up. I think that unless you were exposed to that, you don't know what that's like. And it's easy for people to have that pipe dream of living the American dream. But I was like, you know what? When I teach, I try to emphasize this, but I want to write a book that emphasizes it as well. So I mix the frameworks that work for me, that have worked for me, along with all the personal stories of myself and, you know, some others there as well, to give people a glimpse into this world, because it is a pretty good world to be in. Certainly not for everybody, but I think that it's just a no-brainer for people to at least know about it and to explore it.
So let me just take, for my listeners that don't know what EBITDA is, and give you a chance to explain when you're talking about the income, how it's calculated.
Yeah, I'll try. Yeah, I'll keep it simple. So just think of it as cash flow to the owner. Keep it as simple as that. What it actually means is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. It is a proxy for cash flow. And in the world of finance, people tend to value businesses based on a multiple of how much EBITDA it generates. So it's just a standardized way to think about profits. But as a small business owner, I think about EBITDA, or what some people will call adjusted EBITDA, as just simply the cash flow that goes to the owner on a pre-tax basis.
Right. The difference in their bank account before they pay the tax man.
Exactly. Because we all know in small business, does EBITDA even matter? No. Does profits matter? No. All that matters is what? I know you know the answer to this.
What's left after the tax man?
Yeah, and what cash flow is, right? How much cash you have in the bank. You can't pay employees with EBITDA. Unfortunately, you got to pay them with cold hard cash.
Right, and it always boils down to, you know, what that cash flow model actually looks like, because several of the businesses I have, you have this very variable income stream based upon, you know, example, my construction business, you have stuff that's financed where it's all paid on the back end. These programs, Y-Green and things like that. Although Y-Green doesn't exist anymore in our area, where, you know, 100% of the money comes up front that we have to take in front to take into the construction project, and we get paid only on the back end 100%. Well, that's all well and good, but now you're floating a whole bunch of those. What does your cash flow model look like if those aren't closing out in a timely fashion? It's the messiness of, you know, what it looks like on paper versus what it looks like in practice, and making sure that you're taking and managing your business to take and make sure that cash flow is where it needs to be. So, man, totally 100%.
Yeah.
Exactly what you're.
Yeah, and one critical thing which you hit on so well, because, you know, as a business owner, you get it, right? Is that's the messiness of small business. That is the messiness of small business. What I would tell someone is, if you want to be a business owner, you don't necessarily have to get it. You definitely don't have to get an MBA in any capacity. You also don't really have to like go to a, you know, course and spend a lot of money. You can, but you should just know what that lifestyle is like, and it's working through those issues that you just talked about, right? The fact that, oh, you know, I got a customer, got a great big contract, but guess what? I got to pay for the materials on the front end. I got to front my subs for the money as well. And then guess what? You know, interest rates are high right now, and I don't get paid till, you know, 9 months after the job is done. You know, not to mention that after the job is done, the customer's going to complain about it anyway. So you don't have to go back there and do, you know, some like refurb work, and then it's 30 days after that. All that money could literally be sitting in a CD or a money market humping out 5%, right? And so it's just, it's that messiness that is that's the challenge, but it's also the fun. And I think it's just critical for prospective practitioners to understand what that lifestyle is like.
The messiness is exactly how I define it when I talk about real estate and having a business and all different investment types. There is a continuum of messiness, and depending upon the investment type, it is somewhere along that continuum of messiness. And owning your own business is one of the messier investments out there, only from the standpoint of every problem in the business is your problem if you haven't delegated it to somebody else. And when you start out, a lot of times, there is nobody else to delegate to. You are chief cook and bottle washer. And that is, again, that messiness it's amazing that we hit on the exact same term of what it is, but there's really no other better way to take and define it.
There's no
It's
better way
just
to define it. And what I found is that, with the messiness, what I've been blessed with, and this goes with the people side of things, is, sometimes they just come into my life. Some of the best people I've hired have literally not come from Craigslist. They've just walked into the business, and I can't make that stuff up. You get the right team members that have the ability to clean some of that messiness up and take the burden, Josh, off your shoulders and free you up to actually work on the business as opposed to consistently cleaning things. Oh, it is the best. And that's a critical part of being an entrepreneurial business owner, is that, hiring, you can get methodical about it. You can have the personality surveys, you can hire the whole 9 yards, but so much of it is just luck. But when the people come, and inevitably I think they do, it's so critical to, embrace them, hold on to them, coach them, cultivate them, because the backs of so many successful businesses, the individuals that get the life-changing exits, is because they have entrepreneurial employees that have come in there and just taken ownership. And sometimes with some of the smaller businesses, like a franchise fitness club, for example, that I've owned, people genuinely think sometimes that the entrepreneurial employees in the business actually own the business. They don't always think that I'm the owner. It's kind of like a telltale sign that I've got a good person there. And what's interesting is that they add value, but also, frankly, even after I've sold the businesses, some of the most fulfilling relationships of my life have come with people that have worked with me over the years. So yeah, that people part of it, in terms of cleaning up that messiness, yeah, totally critical.
love it, man. Love it. What do you think makes you passionate about what you do, Reid?
What makes me passionate about what I do is that, at the end of the day, and I hit on this with the people, and I'm just going to hit on it one more time. What really inspires me is the people that I surround myself with. And it seems that what I just learned through habit over the years, trial and error, is that whatever endeavor I throw myself all into, and the critical part of that is being all in. If I'm not all in, I am in the way. And I think with entrepreneurial business ownership, it is critical to be all in, both for establishing credibility with intermediaries, with lenders, with buyers, or sellers, the whole 9 yards. Is that when I take that all in mentality, I come across people that fundamentally changed my life for the better. One example, went to business school. When I got to business school, I was lucky. Chicago Booth was looking at launching a program around helping MBAs go out and buy small businesses. I'd been a small business owner. I was a small business owner, so it aligned for me to get involved in that. So I got to be the teaching assistant for a course at Chicago Booth for the first time on entrepreneurship through acquisition. And I met in that process a fellow TA and 2 first-time adjuncts. And this process, no joke, turned into 40 hours a week of designing curriculum from the ground up. I mean, it was a lot of work. Plus, Chicago Booth students are pretty high caliber, so you can't, let's just say you don't go there with your B game, otherwise they'll chop you up, right? So, but teaching that class really inspired me to go out and buy another business. And it also inspired me to want to go back when I'd, tasted more success in life and teach other people how to do it. Thus now I'm an adjunct professor and I teach it as well. But I wouldn't have wanted to do that unless I had been blessed by, those other individuals that inspired me to level up. So for me, what inspires me, what inspires achievement, what inspires change, what inspires fulfillment is the people that I meet along the way. Heck, even promoting the book and doing the podcast, it's been like fun talking to people like you, and you just never quite know where the relationships are going to go. And the people I meet, it's not always the people I expect. Sometimes it just comes out of left field. And if being open to those relationships, at least what life has taught me, is that the possibilities can be endless.
Love it. All right, a little bit of a lightning round here, Reid. So get loose. Got some questions to toss out here and see what your response is. What are you most proud of in business that you've accomplished?
What I'm most proud of in business is when I owned an industrial services company with working class to middle class techs doing very dirty work. I determined that working in the business, on the business activity was working in the business. And I just took it upon myself to really engage in incessant people projects. So helping individuals that didn't have driver's license navigate the bureaucracy to get their licenses back. And that took a lot of very interesting and creative turns. helping individuals get their commercial driver's licenses, myself included, which was a very fun. If you knew me, by the way, before I was involved in this business, I didn't even know what the term mechanically inclined meant. No joke. And now I have a Class B CDL, right? The roads may not be safe. Anyways, I joke about that. Fully passed, good to go. But I engaged in people projects. One individual had a moment with the IRS a couple years ago that prompted him to decide to stop paying his taxes. I'm empathetic. I think that if other people had had that same experience, I'm empathetic to why he responded the way that he did. But then COVID-19 stimulus checks came about, and this individual was not eligible to get it because he hadn't filed his taxes. So I worked with him, and we filed his unpaid taxes. I had no idea how to do it because I always file my taxes and pay in full. Then he had quite a hefty tax bill, so I worked and did an offer and compromise with the IRS with him, which ultimately got rejected, unfortunately. But just doing things like that and investing in the people projects, I'll call them. And it's not all glory. Don't get me wrong. There was a lot of pain around that, and I can talk about some of the successes. There were just as many failures, but it was just realizing that in this business, which was a huge financial success, that ultimately it was that part of it which was the most enjoyable for me. And the money aside, also just the most impactful. And I can't tell you how many times I got kicked in the groin, by people during that process, right? But ultimately, I can tell you the fulfillment was well worth it in the long run. And outside of that too, I talked about the importance of peer groups. When I was sharing with other business owners or CEOs in these groups, some of the stuff that I was doing, I was drained. I was like, I cannot believe that I did this for that person and they did this to me. Like, that's just so bad. And they were like, you know what? I hear you on that, but just trust me, you'll be happy that you did, years down the road. And early in my career, I was blessed with a owner of a fast casual restaurant in California, older guy in his mid 70s, probably in his 80s now, actually. And he said, Reid, I will just tell you that the fulfillment you'll get as a small business owner is not going to come from the money that you may or may not make. And this individual was, pretty successful financially. He said it's going to be from the people whose lives you can impact along the way. And I took that and just applied it. So that's what the metric of success for me really is. Because, ultimately we can talk about the challenges that face America, inequality, being one. It's like, great. I'm going to get in the trenches and, take individuals that are making X number of dollars an hour. I'm not going to just give them a raise just because, you got to pay for inflation and cost of living increases and that. But it's like, you know what? I will invest in you to improve your skill set, and I will push you to do it, and I'll show you how to do it. And then you're going to make more money. And there we go. And that helps with the wage inequality right there. So I think being a business owner is cool because, at least for me, and there's a lot of other ways to do it, but that's how I've been able to find that and have a positive impact on people. So that is, if forced, I would say that's my best accomplishment, what I'm most proud of.
Yeah, I think that tying in with the idea that Andrew Carnegie kind of idea that you give people a route to help them out of their situation rather than trying to give them out of their situation, right? You give them a pass, you give them the skills. Andrew Carnegie believed that the only thing worse than giving money away was giving money away poorly. The only thing that was worse, the only thing was worse than dying with all your money as a wealthy person was to give your money away poorly. And so he only would give away his money for libraries or church organs. And the only reason why was because church organs was the only place that people could really hear music back in the day, and libraries so that anybody could go in there and through their own effort change their place in life, right? They could take and train themselves up, build their ability to take and make money, to be a more valuable part of society, right? To bring resources, to bring skills to the table that society values more. And so I'm a big fan of, helping people up, but not giving people.
Yeah.
Balancing that out so that people can take part in their own story of success, right?
Yeah.
Because that's such a big part of it, that feeling that you get from having, brought yourself from where you were to where you want to be. So I think there's tremendous value to that.
Yeah. And you hit the nail on the head. Is I wish I'd have like a 7-step process for doing that, but I don't. It's a delicate balance between enabling, like you said, right, versus pushing versus empowering. And the only way that I found to do it is just to throw myself all into it, experiment around with what works, hold people accountable for their actions, both the good and the bad, and then just get my hands real dirty with it, because ultimately can't enable people, right? Can't give them something, but also don't want to let them stay in their situation either, right? So it's an interesting, fun, dynamic challenge.
That's the tough part, right? Sometimes you want them out of their situation more than they do. And it's got to be something where they want it at just as much as you do. And they're willing to take, because it's often redefining the habits, right? That we build up, and we build up these bad habits, whether it be, watching television instead of doing something productive, or whatever it is. Like we build up these habits of how we do our life, and breaking habits, man, that ain't easy. And so it's being with people, helping them through that process of setting new, better habits that help them be a better version of themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right, back to our lightning round. What one book or movie would you recommend to folks?
Yeah, one book or movie you said, or just book?
One book or movie, your choice.
Okay, I'm gonna go with movie on this one. Shawshank Redemption, my favorite
Oh,
movie by a long shot. And the key takeaways for it and I'm not going to ruin it for people that have not seen it. Although if you haven't seen it, I am so happy for you, because your life is about to get fundamentally enhanced and better. I wish I could go back and watch it for the first time again. But the key takeaways to the movie are that, one, life is unfair. Life is just unfair. Two, it's the relationships that really matter in the end. And that, three, if you work hard, you're focused, you're persistent, you do the right things, it's all going to work out. So for those that haven't seen the movie, I wanted to hit those key takeaways without ruining it. And for those that haven't seen it, please go watch it. You're gonna absolutely love it. And for those that have seen it, I mean, I grew up watching TNT, where this thing was on like, every single day. It seems like I've probably seen it easily over 100 times. And I think it's free on Netflix and Amazon Prime, or included on Netflix and Amazon Prime. So I might go out and watch it again. It is just such an inspirational movie.
it's a great film. A great film. It's a story of redemption, and redemption stories are always the ones that move the needle most for me. But if you had the chance, Reid, what famous person would you want to sit down? Famous person from history would you want to sit down and have lunch with?
So I'm going to call this person famous because they're very famous to me. Okay. I'd want to go and get lunch with my dad, Fred, who is still alive in his late 70s. He's all good to go. We have a great relationship. I'd want to get lunch with my dad when he was my age, before he met my
Yeah.
mom. And it would be a blind date. It would basically be that, say that you knew him. You'd say, "Hey, Fred," his name's Fred. "Fred, I want you to go get lunch with this guy named Chris. I think you guys have a lot in common. I'm not going to tell you much about him, but I just want you to go just get lunch with the guy. I think you're going to benefit from it." And I'd want to just know what my dad was like at my age, and learn from him, learn about his aspirations, learned how he was thinking about his future and this and that. I just think it would be a super fun conversation that would be icing on the cake for what is already a pretty cool relationship.
Awesome, man. That is a great one. I had not heard that one before, but I like that. If you had to be stuck in a foxhole taking fire with somebody, who would it be?
If I was stuck in a foxhole taking fire with somebody, it would be with Sylvester Stallone. Another great movie that I like is Rocky, the original, because the story of how Stallone got to make Rocky is nothing short of astounding. It is almost too good to be true. I didn't believe it the first 3 or 4 times that I came across it. Are you familiar with it?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I know. He had to stick to his guns, and he was broke, and yeah, he held to what he believed in, man. It's what's interesting about many of his movies, including Rocky Balboa, which is one of my favorites that I talk about on the show. They're all written reflecting kind of where he is at his time in life, and so they're very reflective of where he, his place in life right now, and how he was thinking. Rocky Balboa being, this older guy that's wondering whether or not he's even relevant anymore, and that battle that he wages with himself. So yeah, no, it's a great story.
And he's just so persistent, and in a black and white world he does the right things, and he just does what he has to do to be successful and to get through it. So I want to be in a foxhole with someone like that I know he's just going to do, no matter how painful, such as selling your dog, right? No matter how painful it is, he's gonna do it. So yeah, I'm in there with Sly, baby.
All right, good stuff. Reid, what do you do to unwind?
I absolutely love the outdoors. I'm a mountain individual. So for me, I love unwinding with exercise. One passion of mine, which I took up when I started moving to the Midwest, was indoor competitive stair climbing. No joke. I didn't even know this till I moved out there for business school in 2013. There's a group of people that trek around the world and do races up high rises. And why this is a great way to, and I'm not talking about like 50 people, some of the biggest events in this space, like Empire State Building, Hancock Tower in Chicago, thousands of people do this. But it's really cool, Josh, because it's high intensity, right? Because you're going upstairs in a high rise, it's intense. It's low impact because you're going up only and you can take the elevator down, and it's time efficient. You know, you can get up these staircases, and even if you go to moderate pace, you go like me, it's like maybe 8 minutes, right? But a moderate pace, 15 minutes. So it's time efficient, high intensity, and low impact. So that's one of my interesting endurance activities these days. Aside from that, I absolutely love cold water immersion. I have a preference to go out and actually swim in cold water, but just doing cold plunging is great because it's one of those few things in life where you're here before, you're here during, and you're here after. And I don't need to repeat because everyone hears it on podcasts all the time these days. Cold water immersion is definitely having a moment these days. It's just one of the few human processes, aside from manipulating drugs in the brain, that releases dopamine and adrenaline without releasing cortisol. Time tested, it can be done very cost effectively in the right environments. So absolute no brainer. Anyone that doesn't take at least a cold shower in the morning, it's almost like not watching The Shawshank Redemption. If you did it, I think, not to project, but I believe if you did both of those, watch Shawshank Redemption if you haven't seen it, and take a cold shower in the morning, I think you're going to get more fulfillment out of life. So at least I should say this, I've gotten more fulfillment out of life by doing those two things.
Understood. All right. What is next for you?
Right now, I'm teaching as an adjunct professor, which is awesome. Got the book going, which is awesome. I'm investing, serving on some boards as well. I like challenges, and small businesses represent 43.5% of U.S. GDP, and yet there's not that much academic research applied to them. So I'm actually 2 years away from completing a PhD on entrepreneurship through acquisition and small business. So I call that a passion project at its core. It's a ton of work, but it's a passion project. And I'm doing some really cool, I think it's cool, qualitative, or doing some cool research now from individuals. We're talking financially successful individuals that sold businesses and figuring out what drove satisfaction in their sales versus what drove them not to be satisfied. And the criteria for these studies is minimum EBITDA of $500,000 minimum, but usually EBITDA is in the millions, and the multiples that get paid for businesses like that are very high. So you're talking mostly 1%ers here. I'm trying to figure out, what factors lead to satisfaction. And I've done some of the research. I'm doing more. Super interesting, applicable for both people in the small business space, but also I think some broader lessons for really any arena of life. So working on that, and and then looking to just keep on teaching people this route. And I always like to get out there and do speaking when the opportunities come about as well, to talk about small business, entrepreneurial business ownership, all that good stuff. So that is what's got me going right now. What I don't want to talk about though, Josh, is that I have no kids, once divorced, 2 broken off engagements. So that's all number 2 priority. But number 1 is finding my mate and popping out a couple kids and going from there. So that's what my number 1 priority is these days. If I got struck by lightning and tomorrow was the end of Reid, that would be the only true regret that I personally would take to the grave. So I believe what gets focused gets done, and all the podcasts, writing, research, investing, teaching stuff, that's all secondary importance. Number 1 is filling the family gap in life. So just what I'm looking for.
Where can folks find you, Reid?
Yeah, so one is if you want to read the book, go to grititdone.com. It's available at 99 cents through the end of May. After that, we're going to raise the price for it. You can also follow me on LinkedIn or Twitter, LinkedIn or X. I'm active on both of those. Or you can go to reidtileston.com, whatever is easiest. And if you read the book and, costs you $1 and spend about 3 hours to do, and you want to learn more about entrepreneurial business ownership, I am happy to book a call with you. People did it for me when I was trying to learn about it. So no matter how busy my schedule gets, I will always do it for people. So feel free to find me in any of those medium, and we'll talk about how to grit it done.
Awesome. Reid, thank you so much for your time and for sharing your wisdom with us. Folks, thanks again for listening. Reid, it was a pleasure, sir. Really genuinely was. Thanks for coming on.
You are welcome. My pleasure.
And to all of our listeners, thanks for listening once again. And until next time, reminding you, you got to know your shit. Life's too short for anything less. Take care, guys.